Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews and another video here on the channel. Today, as the title suggests, I am bringing you novella recommendations. I will confess that normally I plan my videos out a bit more than this. Today I'm just decided I want to see what happens if I do it off the hoof. I have a big old pile of novellas behind me, which may or may not have been in the thumbnail. I haven't made the thumbnail yet. So I'm going to work through those. I have a few novellas that I've read that I don't own copies of, so I shall put covers up on screen for those. I think I discovered novellas as kind of like a thing, probably through Justine, because that's how I discover everything in life, through her talking about the Wayward Children series, and she was like, it's these kids, we'll come on to it. No, I'm not going to explain the Wayward Children series at this point, but discovered that and read them and was like, oh my goodness, I actually very much enjoyed this format. And over the years, probably the last 2 years or so, maybe 3 years, I have read a number of novellas. Not all of them I have loved. A fair amount of them I have really, really enjoyed. And it varies. And the problem is I'm not very good at articulating why some novellas work for me and some don't. And I do think that they are a very different thing to read. And by that, I mean that you can't go into a novella expecting to get the same thing you would get from a 500-page fantasy novel, for example. So I'm going to just chat about the ones I have. I'm going to have a little talking time with you, talk about the things I like about them, maybe some of them that don't hit as hard for me, but I still think are worth reading. Hopefully through that we will learn a little bit about what I like and don't like about novellas. I'm just going to work down the stack because that's the best way I know how to do things, and also how I made the list on my phone so I won't confuse myself later. I have The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This was a fairly new addition to my shelves. I can't remember when I purchased this, but I read this in 2021. This is a really interesting book in that it's based off a... I think the song came first. I can't specifically remember, but it's sung by Clipping, which is a group band that David Diggs is in. My friend is super into them. Anyway, they have a song called The Deep, and it is then turned into this book. And the story is about the descendants of slaves who were thrown off slave ships and died in the water, and the babies of those slaves who came out of the womb with the ability to breathe underwater. And basically, it's sort of mermaids. It's a little bit different, but it's sort of mermaids, and the cover will give you an indication of that. If you'll focus on the cover, please. There we go. No? Maybe. The memories and the trauma that these people hold is so much that they can't all hold it, and Yetu, our main character, is the one who holds those memories, and she carries that trauma, and so it's her responsibility to share that with them. And I think this novella is absolutely beautiful, and I think that the fact that it comes from a really stripped back song that's then built up again as a story really makes it work. So here's one of my novellas as interesting things comments. You get some novellas that are very story based, you get some novellas that are very kind of like thought based, padded out short story kind of thing, and this actually does both. There is a lot of story in this book, but equally it's a lot of what if. And makes you think. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. This is a novella that I can read and read time and time again. Another criteria for me to enjoy a novella. I'm going to want to reread it. They are so expensive, I want to reread them. Then I have two novellas. These actually come in a bind-up on occasion. The audiobook is a bind-up. Come on to audiobooks in a minute. Silver in the Wood and The Drowned Country by Emily Tesh. These were some of my favourite books of 2020. I think these are absolutely fantastic, and this is an example of novellas that take character as their focus and they give you kind of two different short adventures in them. It feels very episodic. I enjoy that greatly. Silver in the Wood is about a man called Tobias who lives in the woods, and he's kind of the guardian of the woods, and Silver, who is the new lord of the manor on which the woods is, comes to visit one day, and stuff happens from there. And then the second one, I won't talk about the plot because it would spoil book one, but it follows these same characters on a slightly different adventure, and they're very magical, they're very folklore focused, they're just, oh, stunningly written. I could read these till the end of time. The audiobook is fantastic. So that's what I'm going to say next, is that for novellas, sometimes I find the audiobook the best way to read them, mostly because I am a very fast reader and audiobooks force me to slow down. I mean, I'll still listen to them at the maximum speed that whatever app I'm listening on will allow me to do, but I do find it really helps me really take in the writing, and novellas are intentionally stripped down so everything has value within them and you have to kind of focus in more on the writing. I personally use Scribd, which has a lot of the Tor novellas on it. Just whatever partnership they have. This isn't sponsored by them. I'm not affiliated with Scribd in any way, but I don't want to spend an Audible credit on a novella, so that's where I'm at. These I would 1,000,000,000% recommend. I love them so much. This is a novella that I need to reread because I read it too quickly, and that's a good example of when you can go into something and not appreciate its novella-ness. This is Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi. This is a sci-fi in which we have the Riot Baby who is born in one of the LA riots, and his sister has kind of powers, very destructive powers, and the book is sort of about their life and the prejudice they face and the unfairness of that. And it's really, I think, let me find the quote. Can I find it? Here we go. Rooted in the hope that can live in anger, Riot Baby is as much an intimate family story as a global dystopian narrative. It burns fearlessly towards revolution and has quietly devastating things to say about love, fury, and the Black American experience. This is one that I definitely want to reread because it doesn't necessarily fit with the other kinds of novellas I like. I tend to like more very, very fantasy, very, very sci-fi novellas. This is more in the real world than I would have thought, but I think it's such an interesting story and there's so much emotion within it that it definitely warrants a reread, and I shall be getting to that before the end of the year. This is a novella series that I have not finished yet. This is an example of some novellas are real teeny. Most people read the bind-up of Binti by Nnedi Okorofor. I happen to only own the first one and I haven't got to the second or third one yet. I'm going to do them by audiobook and then probably buy them. The person to talk to about Binti, if you are looking for coherent reviews on someone who's read all three of them, is Angela. I'll link her video. This is one of those very, very sci-fi novellas. We have Binti. She is the first one of her people to go to this space university, UMSA University. The first one, which is the only one I've read, takes place on her journey to there, and they are attacked by these kind of Medusa, yes, which are aliens that they are in a war with, and things happen. And I don't want to talk about what things happen, but it's very interesting. And again, takes ideas and puts them into this sci-fi setting, which is something that I love when sci-fi does in full books, but in novella form it works very well. I like this a lot. I mentioned these earlier. I'm pretty sure these are the novellas that got me into novella reading. This is the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. I only own two of them. I own Every Heart a Doorway and I own Come Tumbling Down, but I have read all of them that are out so far. Let's hold up Every Heart a Doorway because this is probably one of my favourites. Seanan McGuire writes stories both in different worlds, portal fantasies that children have gone into, or in the school for children who have gone into these other worlds and now need some kind of either rehabilitation, just space to process, time to wait until they can go back, that kind of thing. These are hugely emotional novellas and just beautiful. They feature a lot of queer characters. I love them so much. They're fantastic. They make me cry all the time. And what I really like about this novella series, because this is really the first one of these that is a full, like, I think we're up to book 6 now? Yes, and more to come. What I like about these is they all fit together, but they're very different books. Some of them cross-pollinate, some of them feature characters from other books, some of them we follow characters, we go back in their story, we go forward. But I think you can find a book that fits with you. So personally, I really love Beneath the Sugar Sky. It's one I need to buy for myself. And I really love this first one. And I think there have been others where I've connected less with them. And I think that's another thing with novellas, is that some of them you really connect with. And some of them you just go, well, that was 200 pages, I'm done now, thank you. If you have never read a novella that you liked, it might be that you haven't found a novella for you yet. And that was a very simple statement, but I think that holds true. I would say definitely read these. They are beautiful. They are fantastic. If I had lots and lots of disposable income, I would own them all. I'm going to whiz through these next two because I do have videos up for them. I have Burning Roses by S.L. Huang. This is a fantastic blending of Eastern and Western folklore, and it's just beautiful. It's fantastic. I really enjoy it. It features older queer characters, which is another thing that will come up later. But yes, really enjoyed it. And I also have Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. This is another just fantastic queer story. It's a queer Western. I love it so much. It's a queer Western future dystopian. I'm losing my voice because I'm so excited. It's just great. Go watch my video if you want to know more. Sarah Gailey has written other novellas. They have written American Hippo. This is actually a bind-up of 2 of their novellas, River of Teeth and Taste of Marrow, similar to Silver in the Wood, this bringing together of these shorter stories. This is another alternative Western, but in this case, they don't ranch cattle, they ranch hippos. I don't know if ranch is the right word, but they like raise them up. Hippos are the livestock. And it's absolutely wonderful heist story, not even a caper. It's great. This is just another example of it does a lot of emotional stuff, but it is, broadly speaking, just a fun story, and it happens to be very, very quick. And I think putting them together is really sensible because you get 2 of those stories. I don't know how much they would hold up if you just read the second one, but the first one combined with the second one is very powerful. This is How You Lose the Time War. By the time this video goes up, I don't think that my overbooked video for this will be up yet, but this is a sci-fi novella. We feature time travel. I think everyone's already talked about this, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it is absolutely fantastic. This is an example of a beautiful novella that I think really demonstrates the lack of necessary world building in novellas. Some novellas pack loads of world building in, they want to build a world. Some novellas, like this one, just tell you what you need to know for the story and your brain can kind of fill in the gaps, and I think it's really well done in this book in terms of you don't need to know everything about how this time travel mechanic works, you don't need to know everything about this war that they're in, you just need to know what these characters tell you, and I think that that's very significant, and it works very well, and it can go very wrong. I've read novellas where I've gone, I don't know what was happening there, and I don't think I need to read it again to find out, I'm okay. Whereas this, it's fantastic. And the last of my physical novellas that I have on my shelves is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This I have got a video up for, yes, I do. So you can go and watch that if you want to find out more, but I just think this is a great example of, again, being sparing with what you include and that working. I don't think I would want to read a full book of this because in a very Becky Chambers way, there isn't much plot. It's just sort of people existing. And in Becky Chambers' books, she adds in other elements. There are a lot more characters, whereas this, it's just pared down to exactly what you need to get the emotion and the message of the story. And I very much like that. Without feeling preachy. Some novellas do feel preachy. So that's all of my physical novellas. Let's talk about some of the ones that I do not own, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring them up. Continuing on with Becky Chambers, I have A Psalm for the Wild Built, which isn't out yet, but will be out very soon. If you haven't pre-ordered this and you like novellas, 100% pre-order this. Though fair warning, it does deal with not knowing what you're doing with your life and feeling a little bit unfulfilled, which if that is an emotion that you are having a lot at the moment, you might want to maybe pause on this one, or read it knowing that and see if it helps at all, because I did find it somewhat helpful. It's absolutely beautiful, world where all the robots walked away one day, humanity has moved on, and then we have a tea monk as our main character who is searching for some sort of fulfillment and meets a robot who wants to know about what humanity wants. And yes, very, very good. Beautifully written. I was so excited for other people to read that one. Yes. This actually, I want to couple it with a short story. So this is A Dead Gin in Cairo and The Haunting of Tramcar015 by P. Djeli Clark. The Haunting of Tramcar015 is the novella, and it is absolutely fantastic. Love the audiobooks for these. They are great. Alternate Cairo, I've talked about it so many times, but where the jinn are involved, there are murder mysteries, there are kind of crime detective stuff. It's so fantastic, and Master of Jinn is out in the US and almost out in the UK, so you could read the whole trifecta, and I think it's probably a really interesting way to experience a short story, a novella, and a full-length novel, and the differences between the two and what you get out of them. Very, very interesting. Another novella series, probably the other big novella series that I've read, is Murderbot by Martha Wells. That's another one that has a full-length novel included. I could grab it, but my microphone will come off. A security unit, a sec unit, who has hacked their own governor module, so they just want to sit around and watch TV all the time and not deal with humans, but because this is plot and books and stuff, they end up in a lot of very human situations and having to disguise what they can and can't do, and it's fantastic. My favourite is the most recent one, Fugitive Telemetry, which is a murder mystery. It's fantastic. They're all great. Murderbot takes me a while to get into. It's not my favourite thing, but I think it's another good example of when you read more novellas, you know more how to read them and what you get out of them, and I don't mean that in like a gatekeepy, if you don't like novellas, you're just reading them wrong, but it took me 7 Murderbot books to really get it. So yeah, that. I have just a few more. I have In the Vanishers Palace by Aliette Bodard. I did read her other novella, Fireheart Tiger, and I liked it well enough, but I wanted to talk about In the Vanishers Palace, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but the Beast is sort of a dragon, and it's sapphic, and it's gorgeous. And I know a lot of people who didn't like it, but I personally did, and that's just my example of not every novella is for everyone. There you go. That's what I'll say on that one. The Four Profound Weaves, this is another one featuring older characters. In this case, it features older trans characters who need to learn to weave from death, as in death needs to teach them a thing. And it's just fantastic. And it's one that I think about a lot, but I haven't read more than once. It's odd. It's really stayed with me. That's definitely on my list to obtain at some point when I have some money. And lastly, number 16, because I don't want to bimble along for too long, very recently for Angela over at Literature Science Alliance's book club, we read Remote Control. I think it might have been the first one we read. Oh, Feels like a long time ago, but it can't have been. Anyway, Remote Control by Nnedi Okorofor, who also wrote the Binti series. This is an absolutely fantastic novella featuring a main character who kind of has superpowers, kind of has supervillain powers if you looked at it another way. And this I would absolutely recommend reading. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil it for you, but just the writing is absolutely stunning. The character work is fantastic. Just the catharsis I got at the end of the book was amazing. A book that really took me on a journey. So yeah, that's been me babbling about novellas for around about 20 minutes. I'm hoping I can cut this down quite significantly because you don't need my babble. What's really interesting to me is so many of these are Tor, and I don't know if that's just because Tor are the people producing novellas that are on my radar and I'm on their PR list, so I get some of them. I don't know why that's interesting to me. It just is. I think when you notice a lot of one publisher in particular doing a kind of thing you enjoy, it's interesting. I found that with Orbit and longer form stuff at the moment. But what I will say is that novellas are priced extremely high for books that often feature authors and characters and settings that aren't necessarily seen as much in wider publishing. They are priced out of the price range of a huge number of people. They are very expensive. Let me find, how much was Upright Women Wanted if you bought it new? It was $21, pretty much, 25 Canadian. I bought it in the UK, so I don't know the conversion of that. But they are very expensive. I think they have value, they're very lovely, they're very collectible, which is always a difficult mindset to get out of in terms of, I don't need to own all of them. I can buy different, but it's fine. So my recommendation is still to find them on ebook services and audiobooks, and if you can get them in your library, get them in your library. I don't necessarily advocate for spending all of your money on novellas. Like if you could get 2 paperbacks for the same price, read the 2 paperbacks, have a wonderful time. I just think that's interesting. Why are they so expensive? Why? But that being said, I do love a novella. I really do. I've come, not full circle because I was never against them, but I've really come to enjoy them and look for them as something I want to read. I put a lot of them in my TBRs because I find them enjoyable. And there are so many more that I would like to read. But if any of your favourites weren't on this list or anything that you know is upcoming that you're really excited for, please let me know in the description below because I am about to run out. I need to finish Binti, and I think that's the only thing that I've flagged in my head of, oh, that I need to get to. But other than that, I don't know. So if you've got favourite novellas, hit me up with those recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already and you would like more book recommendations and book reviews, there will be reviews for all of these in the course of time. Please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on all of my social media. Come hang out with us on Discord. We have a good time. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews and to another novellas that, please don't notice that I'm just going in reverse alphabetical order because that's how I pulled them off my shelves.